Whenever you have a mechanics lien, you have three types of claimants. You have what we call a general contractor or GC, a sub or subcontractor, or a subcontractor, and that'll be represented by SS. And all of these contractors work for the owner, or they work in conjunction with the owner to improve that owner's property. So have the owner write down here with a really horrible drawing of a house, but this will represent the owner. So whenever it comes to perfecting mechanics liens, there's normally just two steps. There's a notice requirement and there's an affidavit requirement. So notice has to be given out to everybody who may be liable on mechanics lien, and then you have to file that affidavit so that subsequent purchasers or subsequent purchasers can see the affidavit if they were to purchase that property, and also so that the owners and any other people who are liable on that mechanics lien can have, I guess, what we call constructive notice of that affidavit. So when it comes to a general contractor is the contractor who has a direct contract with the owner. All right, so that's the person who deals face-to-face with the owner and has something in writing directly with the owner. The subcontractor is the contractor who has a contractor with the general contractor, but doesn't have really much contact with the owner. And then subsequently, the subcontractor is connected to the subcontractor, and of course, he doesn't have a contract with the general contractor or the owner as well. So I guess whenever it comes to perfecting mechanics liens for a general contractor, I guess we'll just start and run down the line. We'll start with the general contractor. Whenever it comes to perfecting mechanics liens for a general contractor, one, as you can notice, or as you can see, there is no notice requirement for a general contractor. So a general contractor doesn't have to send a letter out to an owner and say, hey, you owe me a certain amount of money, I need to get this money back. There's no notice requirement for that general contractor to reach out to the owner and say, look, you need to, you're liable and you owe us a certain amount of money. But there is an affidavit requirement, and that affidavit has to be filed in the county records wherever the property is located. So right now we're in Houston, and if we had a conflict or an issue down here in Houston, we would file it in Harris County property records so that everybody would have constructive notice. Any subsequent purchasers would know about the lien that's attached to that property. Also, just as a good rule for most general contractors, if you have a mechanics lien contract with that owner, you want to make sure that you have that contract attached to the affidavit. Just makes things a lot simpler for any subsequent purchasers who may see that lien as well. After that affidavit is filed, first of all, that affidavit also has to be filed by a certain deadline. And that deadline is kind of across the board for general contractors, subcontractors, and subcontractors. That affidavit must be filed by the 15th of the 4th month after the completion of the project. So once all work is completed, the affidavit must be filed on, the 15th of that 4th month. So let's just say, for instance, work was completed in January of a year. If you go 4 months after that, that would be May. So it has to be filed by the 15th of May, just for the example. And then after you file an affidavit, you must also make sure that you give notice to the owner that the affidavit has been filed. So that's a different type of notice than the notice that you send the owner saying that you're owed a certain sum of money. You also have to make sure that you send notice to the owner that the affidavit has been filed as well, and that just lets the owner know that there are legal proceedings that are moving forward, and that there's a lien attached to the house. Now, when it comes to perfecting mechanics liens or filing any kind of mechanics lien, there is a statute of limitations that's involved with that, and that statute of limitations is 2 years. So if you want to, I guess, move forward with a a foreclosure of a lien, there is a statute of limitations when it comes to that as well. So even if you have perfected your mechanics lien, followed every single step to the T, if you haven't moved to foreclose that lien within that 2-year statute of limitations, and that goes across the board for general subs and subcontractors, you have to make sure that you try to foreclose that lien within 2 years. So let's move forward. With the subcontractor, there is a notice requirement. That notice requirement is a 3-month notice requirement, as you can see right here. So as opposed to the 15th of the 4th month that you see with the affidavit filing, there is a 3-month notice requirement. So it has to be, you have to give notice to the owner and the general contractor by the 15th of the 3rd month. So as you can see, we have our notice arrows right here from the subcontractor. You can see these purple lines. I guess they represent who notice goes to. So with a subcontractor, you have to make sure that you send notice to the general contractor and the owner as well. And that notice plays a big role. It, one, lets the owner know that he has to retain or hold his 10% retainers. Now, an owner is required to hold 10% of the value of the work that's been done to his project until 30 days after the completion of that project. So normally, once that owner gets that notice, he holds that 10% to help pay for any kinds of deficiencies in payment. But there's also what we call fund trapping language. So normally in that 3rd month notice, you include what we call fund trapping language too. And that's specific language that has to be included in the notice requirement that allows the owner to hold in excess of that 10%. And it allows the owner to hold the full amount that the subcontractor may be owed. But I guess there's one nuance when it comes to that. Like I said earlier, the owner is only required to hold that 10% for 30 days. 30 days after the project is completed. If after 30 days that owner releases that 10% and has no money that he's retained, and then he ends up getting notice with that fund trapping language, he's not liable for not having that 10% because he's still, abided by that retainage requirement. So really, when it comes to notice for subcontractor, is really the earlier of the two. So the earlier of 30 days after the contract is completed, and the 3 months after work has been done by the subcontractor. So you have to make sure that you calculate that and know that if that 30 days for retainage has passed and the owner has already given that 10%, it's going to be hard for me to get my money. So you want to make sure that you get that fund trapping notice in before that owner releases that 10%. So moving down, I guess, to the affidavit requirement. Like I stated earlier, the filing of the affidavit, the requirement, the 15th of the 4th month, is universal across the board. So the subcontractor is held to that same 15th of the 4th month after the completion of the project that the GC is required for filing. Also, he's held to the same notice requirement when it comes to sending notice to the owner of the affidavit that has been filed. So let's move on to the subcontractor. Now the subcontractor's notice is a little bit more strict. The subcontractor normally has to give 2 types of notice. We call it the 2nd month notice that's sent out to the general contractor, and a 3rd month notice that's sent out to the owner. Now both of these notice requirements, or both of these notices, send out notice to the GC and the owner and allow them to withhold funds. So if the subcontractor sends out notice to the general contractor, stating to the general contractor, look, the sub hasn't paid me, well, that allows the general contractor to withhold the funds, and the general contractor is most likely required to hold those funds. The same goes with the 3-month notice to the owner. It kind of acts as the 3-month notice that the sub sends to the owner as well. Now, I guess you can also combine these notice requirements into one notice. So you can combine them into a 2-month notice that you send to the general contractor and also to the owner, and just eliminate, just drafting the second notice. So it kind of allows you to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, per se. And as long as you have that fund trapping language, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone by just combining those 2 notices and including the fund trapping language in the notice documents. Like I stated before, subcontractors' rights when it comes to mechanics liens are extremely strictly statutory, as a matter of fact, because the subcontractors' rights are only given to it based on the statute. So if there are any kind of deficiencies in notice or deficiencies in the actual document itself, then the subcontractors' rights to get compensated for not being paid are kind of thrown out the window. Now moving forward, as you can see, the same affidavit requirements across the board, and also notice has to be given of the affidavit that's actually been filed to the owner and the GC by the 5th day after the affidavit has been filed. So that's pretty much it. That's the gist of mechanics liens. Just a quick crash course on perfecting mechanics liens. Of course, there are nuances. What if it's a residential property? What if it's a homestead that you're trying to attach a lien to? These nuances make it a little bit more difficult, but just for basic purposes, this is the gist of everything that needs to be known regarding perfecting mechanics liens. So, like I said, I've already drafted an article on my LinkedIn about this. You can go check out that article on my LinkedIn under Jeffrey Bell, and you can cross-reference this information with the article. And if you have any questions, my LinkedIn profile is always open. Reach out to us. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you.